Space was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan sat in the cockpit of his small, Freightr Star Wanderer, staring at the stars through the viewport. It was supposed to be a simple run. Pick up supplies from a trade station, drop them off on a mining colony, then head home. Nothing dangerous, nothing exciting. But deep inside, Ethan always knew space had a way of surprising him. The ship's scanner beeped softly. At first, he ignored it, thinking it was just another piece of drifting rock. But the beep became a steady tone, and the display showed something unusual, an object, small and metallic, moving slowly in the debris field ahead. He frowned. "That's no asteroid," he muttered, bringing the ship closer. He could see it now. It was an escape pod, battered, scorched, and spinning gently in the dark. The emergency lights were almost dead, flickering weakly. His heart tightened. Escape pods out here rarely meant good news. He activated the docking clamps and carefully pulled the pod into his cargo bay. The moment the airlock cycled, his suit's sensors picked up faint life signs inside. Someone was alive in there. Ethan worked quickly, prying open the damaged hatch. The smell of burnt metal filled the air, and inside, curled up in the corner, was a small alien girl. Her skin had a faint silver blue tone, and delicate markings ran along her cheeks. She looked weak, her breathing slow. Her large eyes fluttered open, cloudy with exhaustion, and she whispered something he couldn't understand. "Hey, it's okay," Ethan said softly, kneeling beside her. "You're safe now." She tried to sit up, but winced in pain. He gently helped her, checking for injuries. Her pulse was weak, but there was no major bleeding. Dehydration, exhaustion, and shock. That was his guess. He brought her to the med bay, laying her on the narrow bed. The ship's medical scanner hummed, confirming she needed fluids and rest. As the auto-injector gave her a mild dose of nutrient solution, her eyes slowly focused on him. She spoke again, her voice quiet. "Lyra," she said, tapping her chest. "Lyra." Ethan nodded, smiling. "Lyra, I'm Ethan." He tapped his own chest, hoping she understood. She gave a tiny nod, her expression softening. Over the next few hours, he kept the ship steady while checking on her every few minutes. She was small, maybe 12 or 13 in human years, and clearly scared. Her clothes, though torn and burned in places, were made from fine material with tiny crystal-like threads. She didn't look like a common traveler. When she was strong enough to sit up, Ethan brought her a warm drink. She hesitated, sniffing it carefully before taking a sip. Her eyes widened slightly, and he chuckled. "Hot chocolate, a human thing." She tilted her head, repeating slowly, "Hot chocolate." They didn't share a common language, but they began finding ways to communicate. She pointed to the stars outside the viewport, and then mimed a crash, making a small explosion gesture. Ethan guessed. She was telling him her ship had been attacked. He nodded. "Raiders?" he asked, making a sharp hand gesture like firing weapons. Her eyes darkened, and she nodded quickly. By the time the second day passed, she had enough strength to move around the ship. She followed him into the cockpit, watching curiously as he adjusted controls. She pointed at the navigation display, and then at a symbol near the edge of known space. It was a territory marker, one that belonged to a species rarely seen in human space. So that's where she's from, Ethan thought, a long way from home. But something about the symbol caught his attention. It wasn't just any territory. It was the royal crest of the Xerillians, a powerful but secretive empire. He glanced at Lyra. Could she be? No, he thought. I shouldn't assume. Later, as he repaired a damaged thruster, he found her sitting in the cargo bay, watching the stars. Through the open maintenance panel, she hummed softly, a strange but calming melody. For a moment, the ship felt warmer, less empty. When she saw him, she pointed to his toolkit, then mimicked using a wrench. He handed her a small spanner. smiling. "You can help." She didn't understand the words, but she understood the smile. That night, while he set the ship on autopilot, he looked at the navigation map. The fastest route to her home world would take them, through danger space. Patrols were rare there, and raiders hunted anything that moved. But turning back wasn't an option. He had found her, and that meant he was responsible for getting her home. 2 days later, the danger found them. The scanner picked up 3 fast-moving ships on an intercept course. Their heat, signatures matched pirate-class raiders. Ethan's stomach tightened. His freighter wasn't built for a fight. Lyra sensed tension. She stood beside him, eyes wide, gripping the edge of his chair. "Hang on," Ethan said, throwing the ship into evasive maneuvers. The raiders fired, energy bolts flashing past the viewport. The Star Wanderer shook under the impact of near misses. He pushed the engines to maximum, weaving through a field of drifting asteroids. The raiders followed, their shots coming closer. Then a lucky move, a narrow gap between 2 massive rocks. Ethan flew straight through the edges, scraping the hull. One raider tried to follow and clipped the asteroid, exploding into a burst of fire and debris. 2 left, Ethan muttered. He switched off his running lights and cut the engines, letting the ship drift behind a large asteroid. The remaining raiders zoomed past, searching for him, holding his breath. He waited until their signals disappeared from the scanner. Only then did he restart the engines, the hum filling the silence again. Lyra exhaled shakily, then reached out and touched his arm. Her eyes were bright, full of relief and gratitude. She said something in her language slowly, almost like she wanted him to understand. "Safe now." Ethan smiled tiredly. "Yeah, safe now." For the rest of the night, she stayed close to him, as if afraid he might vanish. And in that quiet moment, Ethan knew something had changed. He wasn't just helping a lost passenger anymore. He had made a promise, without words, to see her safely home. The hum of the Star Wanderer's engines filled the air as Ethan adjusted the navigation course. The stars ahead seemed endless, but each jump brought them closer to Lyra's home. The young alien sat quietly in the co-pilot's chair, watching the shimmering lanes of starlight outside the viewport. Her eyes, though still cautious, now held a small spark of comfort. Over the last few days, their strange mix of gestures, simple words, and drawn symbols had built a fragile bridge between their worlds. She now knew his name and could say it clearly, and he could say hers without hesitation. That morning, Ethan brought out a small, holographic projector from the storage compartment. With a click, a glowing 3D map of the galaxy hovered in the air. He pointed to their current location, then traced a line toward the Zerelian crest, her home's position. Lyra leaned forward, pointing at the crest, then pressing her palm over her heart. "Home," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "We'll get there." But the route was still dangerous. Several sectors were known for unstable wormholes, space, storms, and uncharted pirate zones. Ethan studied the chart carefully. "Best to avoid the nebula drift," he muttered, mostly to himself. Lyra tilted her head. "Nebula." He smiled and brought up an image of a swirling purple cloud. Her eyes widened in wonder, and for a moment she forgot the fear that had followed her since the escape pod. To pass the time, Ethan taught her how to use some of the ship's controls. She learned quickly, turning dials, reading simple symbols, and even helping him monitor the scanner for incoming ships. Her curiosity reminded him of his younger sister back on Earth. One evening while he was making a basic meal from the ship's stores, Lyra appeared in the doorway holding something. It was a small pendant, silver and shaped like a star with a gemstone in the center. She placed it on the table in front of him and said something in her own language. He shook his head gently. "You don't have to give me that." But she pressed it into his hand, her expression firm. He understood. This wasn't just a gift. It was thanks. Later that night, Ethan sat in the cockpit alone, holding the pendant and thinking about how strange it was to care so deeply for someone he had met. Only days ago, on the 5th day of travel, the scanner picked up another signal. This time, it wasn't raiders. It was a large, heavily armed vessel broadcasting Xyrillian royal codes. Ethan sat straighter. "We've got company, Lyra." The vessel approached quickly, its sleek, silver hull gleaming under the light of a distant star. A voice crackled over. The comm, speaking in a language Ethan didn't know. Lyra rushed to the console and answered. Her words were quick, urgent. A moment later, the voice returned in heavily accented English. "Human ship, you are in Xyrillian Royal Space. Identify yourself." Ethan took a breath. "Name's Ethan Cole. I found a Xyrillian escape pod. Your passenger is on board." There was silence on the line, then a burst of chatter in Xyrillian. The big ship pulled alongside. The Star Wanderer and 2 smaller escort craft took formation on either side. Within minutes of boarding, team arrived. Their armor shimmered with faint blue light, and their helmets covered their faces. They scanned Ethan. Quickly, weapons at the ready. Lyra stepped forward, waving her arms and speaking rapidly. The guards paused, glancing at one another, then lowered their weapons slightly. One of them removed his helmet, a tall, sharp-featured Xyrillian with pale silver hair. "You brought her back?" he asked cautiously. "Yes," Ethan said. "She was in an escape pod. Her ship was destroyed." The guard's eyes narrowed. "Do you know who she is?" "Her name is Lyra," Ethan replied simply. The guard gave a faint smile. "Princess Lyra." Ethan froze. It confirmed what he had suspected. But hearing it out loud felt different. This wasn't just some lost traveler. This was the daughter of the Xyrillian queen. The guards insisted on escorting them to the capital world. As the Star Wanderer followed the royal ship through the jump lanes, Ethan noticed Lyra watching him closely. She seemed worried, perhaps afraid that their bond would be broken once they reached her home. After a long, final jump, the planet appeared. In the viewport, a world of silver oceans and shining white cities that glowed under a soft golden sun. Towering spires rose from the surface like crystal trees, and enormous ships drifted in orderly lines above the atmosphere. "Impressive," Ethan murmured. Lyra's face lit up at the sight of her world. But she didn't run to the exit when they landed. Instead, she stayed close to Ethan as the guards prepared to take her to the palace. When they stepped out, a large crowd waited at the spaceport. Their silver blue skin gleamed in the sunlight, and their eyes followed every move Ethan made. He could feel the weight of their stares. Some curious, others cautious. The lead guard spoke quietly. "The queen will want to meet you. Immediately. Stay close." As they boarded a sleek transport toward the royal palace, Lyra sat beside him, her small hand gripping his sleeve. Outside, the city passed by in blurs of white bridges and glowing gardens. When they reached the palace gates, Ethan's breath caught. The structure was massive, its walls etched with patterns that shimmered like starlight. Soldiers stood at attention, their armor polished to mirror brightness. Inside, the air was cooler, scented faintly with something floral. The floors reflected their steps, and towering pillars lined the main hall. At the far end, behind a wide throne of silver and crystal, a tall figure stood waiting. Her long robe flowed like liquid light, and a crown of delicate metal rested on her brow. Even from a distance, Ethan could feel the quiet authority she carried. Lyra's grip on his sleeve tightened. She whispered something softly, her voice trembling but full of relief. The queen stepped forward, her eyes fixed on Ethan. And in that moment, Ethan realized a real challenge wasn't getting Lyra home. It was facing the mother of the girl he had saved. The great throne hall was silent, except for the soft echo of footsteps. Ethan followed the royal guard, feeling every pair of eyes in the vast room fixed on him. Tall pillars stretched to the high arched ceiling, their silver surfaces shimmering in the light of floating crystal orbs. Alien nobles stood in small clusters along the sides, their expressions unreadable as they watched the human intruder. Lyra walked beside Ethan, her small hand still clutching his sleeve. She had been quiet since they entered the palace, but her eyes never left the tall figure. Waiting ahead, the queen stood at the far end, her crown glinting, her long robe trailing over the polished floor. Her presence was calm but powerful. Every step she took toward them was measured, graceful, and commanding. The guard captain stopped and bowed. "Your Majesty," he said in Xyrillian. Then he switched to accented English. "We have returned the princess and the human who found her." The queen's gaze moved to Ethan. She studied him for a long, silent moment, her silver-blue eyes sharp, as if weighing every detail of the man before her. Ethan held her gaze, unsure if he should bow or salute. He decided to simply stand straight, his hands at his sides. Then, to Ethan's surprise, Lyra let go of his sleeve and rushed forward. Her voice rang out in the high-ceiling hall. "He saved me, Mom." The words, spoken in perfect English, froze everyone. Ethan blinked. He hadn't realized she had learned enough of his language to say that. The queen stopped mid-step for the first time. Her calm mask shifted. Her eyes softened, and she lowered herself to meet her daughter. "Lyra," she said, her voice gentler now. She touched her daughter's face, scanning for injuries. "Are you truly well?" Lyra nodded quickly, but she pointed back at Ethan. "Safe because of him." She turned to the nobles, repeating in her own language, speaking fast and passionately. Even without understanding every word, Ethan could tell she was describing what had happened: the escape pod, the rescue, the pirates, the long journey home. Murmurs spread through the hall. Some nobles looked skeptical, others surprised. A few frowned, perhaps not, trusting a human. The queen rose and looked at Ethan again. "You risked yourself for my child," she said in careful English. "Anyone would have." Ethan replied. "No," she said, her voice steady but firm. "Not anyone. Many would have left her pod drifting. Some might have used her for ransom. You didn't either." Ethan didn't know what to say. He had never thought of it as anything special. He had just done what felt right. The queen gestured to the guards. "Bring him forward." As Ethan walked toward her, the noble's whispers grew louder. When he stopped a few paces away, the queen spoke again. "I am Queen Serena of the Xyrillian Empire. You are in my hall. Human, tell me, why did you save her?" Ethan hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because she needed help. She was alone, scared, and in danger. I couldn't just fly away." The queen's expression remained unreadable, but something in her eyes changed, a glimmer of respect. Before she could speak again, the doors at the far end of the hall burst open. A royal officer hurried in, bowing quickly. "Your Majesty, urgent news. Scout ships report incoming raider vessels. The same pattern as the attack on the princesses. Transport." The room tensed instantly. Guards straightened. Nobles murmured, and Lyra's hand tightened around her mother's robe. Queen Serena's voice was calm, but cold. "How many?" "At least 8 ships, all fast-as destroyers," the officer said. "They will reach our orbit within the hour." The queen turned to her advisors, who immediately began speaking over one another in rapid Xyrillian. The hall became a flurry of activity. Ethan stood silently, feeling like an outsider. But then he remembered something. The way the raiders had chased him and Lyra, the gap between the asteroids, their formation patterns. He stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I've fought these raiders before." Several nobles turned to glare at him, but the queen raised her hand, silencing them. "Go on." They used predictable attack. "Waves," Ethan explained. 2 ships. Draw attention while the rest try to flank. If you bait them into a narrow route, you can trap them." An older noble scoffed. "And you think our fleet needs advice from a human freighter pilot?" Lyra's voice cut in sharply. "Listen to him. she said in her own language, then repeated in English. He is smart. He kept me safe. He knows how they fight. The Queen studied Ethan for a long moment. Then she turned to her war captain. Send his strategy to the fleet. Prepare defense along the crystal belt. If it fails, the human will answer. To me, Ethan nodded. Fair enough. As the hall emptied for battle preparations, the Queen approached Ethan once more. Her voice was quiet. Now you understand that if you are wrong, my people will pay the price. I understand, Ethan said, but I won't be wrong. She looked at him for another moment, then glanced at Lyra, who stood close to him again. The Queen's expressions softened just slightly. Stay with her until this is over. The three of them left the hall together, the sound of distant alarms beginning to echo through the palace. Outside, the sky was already filling with the shapes of defending ships moving into position. For the first time since arriving on the planet, Ethan felt like he wasn't just a stranger. He had a role to play. And, with Lyra at his side, he intended to see it through. The palace war room was alive with movement. Holographic maps hovered in the center, showing the positions of both the Xylian fleet and the incoming raiders. Commanders spoke quickly in their language, their voices calm but urgent. The Queen stood at the head of the table, her presence steady, her eyes fixed on the glowing battlefield projection. Ethan stood slightly apart, feeling the weight of the moment. He wasn't a military officer, just a pilot who'd been in the wrong place at the right time. But his plan was now part of the Queen's defense. Lyra stayed close to him, her small hand resting on the sleeve of his jacket. She looked up at him often as if drawing reassurance from his calm face. We win, she asked quietly in English. He gave her a small smile. We'll try. The war captain pointed to a stretch of space on the map, a dense ring of icy asteroids known as the Crystal Belt. The Queen turned to Ethan. Your plan calls for baiting them through here. Yes, Ethan replied. Their ships are faster, but they rely on swarming. If we can lure the lead ships into the belt, the rest will follow. The belt is narrow, perfect for trapping them in crossfire. The Queen nodded slowly. Captain, adjust our formation. Orders spread through the room, and moments later, the fleet began moving into position. From the palace balcony, Ethan could see the massive ships lifting into the sky, their silver hulls gleaming in the sunlight. He and Lyra were escorted aboard the Orange Shield, the flagship of the Xylian fleet, so he could observe the battle from the command deck. The Queen herself took the command seat, her robe exchanged for light ceremonial armor. Her crown remained, though it seemed to be part of her even in battle. As they ascended into orbit, the raiders appeared on the long-range display. 8 destroyers in a tight formation, engines burning hot. They were painted in dull, jagged colors meant to intimidate. Ethan recognized the design. Immediately, same group, he said. They won't expect the belt trap. The Queen's voice was calm. All ships, hold formation. Do not engage until they commit. The raiders close and fast. 2 ships peeling ahead just as Ethan predicted. They fired on the outer defense line, drawing the attention of the Xylian forward cruisers. The cruisers gave way, pretending to fall, back toward the crystal belt. They're taking the bait, Ethan said, leaning over the console. Inside the belt, the icy asteroids reflected light in all directions, making targeting more difficult. But the Xylian fleet had positioned small hidden gun platforms among the ice, ready to strike when the raiders entered. The first 2 raider ships rushed in, weaving between the asteroids. The rest followed in tight pursuit, eager to finish the kill. That was when the Queen gave the order. All batteries, fire. The belt exploded with light. Hidden turrets unleashed a storm of energy bolts, tearing into the raiders from all sides. Xylian cruisers closed in from the front, sealing the trap. One raider tried to break through an opening, but a well-placed asteroid, pushed from a tractor beam, slammed it off course. Another ship clipped a frozen mass and spun out of control, drifting, helplessly until Xylian fire finished it. Lyra's eyes were wide, her voice a mix of awe and relief. They lose? Ethan nodded. Not yet, but soon. The raiders fought fiercely, their heavy cannons scoring hits on several Xylian ships. One cruiser took a direct hit and began to break apart, forcing its crew to abandon ship, but the formation held, the traps squeezing tighter with each passing moment. 3 enemy ships destroyed, reported the tactical officer. 2 more disabled. The Queen kept her gaze locked on the map, focused fire on their flagship. The largest raider vessel was trying to reverse out of the belt, but the icy terrain slowed its movements. Xylian ships swarmed it, firing in coordinated bursts. A final volley from the orange shield struck its core, and the ship erupted into a ball of flame. The remaining raiders broke formation, scattering in every direction. Some tried to flee, but a Xylian fleet pursued them, disabling engines and forcing Sereners. Within minutes, the battle was over. Cheers broke out on the command deck, but the Queen raised her hand for silence. "Count our losses," she said. Her tone carried the weight of every life under her command. The report came back. 2 ships lost, several damaged, but the capital was safe. Only then did she turn to Ethan. "Your plan worked," she said simply. "You executed it perfectly," he replied. "Perhaps," she said, her gaze softening slightly, "but without your insight we might have lost far more." Lyra smiled at him proudly, her voice carrying through the deck. "See, I say," listened to Ethan. A few officers chuckled quietly. Even the Queen's lips curved in the faintest smile. As they descended back toward the capital, the planet's silver oceans glimmered beneath them. The city below shone in celebration lights as if the people already knew their skies were safe again. Back at the palace, a small crowd had gathered to greet them. Nobles bowed to the Queen, and guards saluted, but to Ethan's surprise, some bowed slightly toward him, too, not out of duty but respect. The Queen addressed the crowd in her language, her voice carrying strength and reassurance. Though Ethan couldn't understand all her words, he caught his name spoken more than once, followed by the Xylian word. Lyra had taught him, protector, as the formalities ended. The Queen motioned for him to follow her to a quieter part of the palace. The room they entered was lined with windows overlooking the city and the distant horizon. Lyra joined them, leaning happily against her mother's side. The Queen spoke softly. "Now, you have given me 2 gifts, my daughter's safe return and the defense of my world. Both are debts I cannot easily repay." "You don't owe me anything," Ethan said. "I just did what anyone should do." The Queen studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is why you are worth trusting." Ethan glanced at Lyra, who gave him a wide grin. In that moment, he realized something. He hadn't just rescued a princess. He had earned the friendship of an entire world. The next morning, the palace was alive with activity. Banners in silver and deep blue hung from every balcony, and the city streets were filled with citizens gathering to celebrate the victory. News of the battle had spread fast, how the raiders had been defeated near the Crystal Belt, and how an outsider, a human, had helped save the Xylian capital. Ethan stood in a guest chamber high in the palace, looking out at the scene below. From this height, the city looked like a living ocean of light, the morning sun casting a golden glow over its crystal towers. The air felt calm now, but he knew the last few days had been anything but. A soft chime at the door pulled him from his thoughts. It slid open, and Lyra stood there smiling brightly. She wore a clean robe with a royal crest, her silver blue hair brushed neatly. "Come," she said in clear English. "Mother wants you." Ethan followed her through the winding halls, past guards and attendants who bowed to the princess. Some of them glanced at him with curiosity, others with open respect. The Queen was waiting in the great hall, but this time the space had been transformed. The floor was lined with rows of nobles, military officers, and citizens, A long carpet stretched from the entrance to the dais where the throne stood. As Ethan entered, the crowd turned. Whispers moved through the room, some in awe, some in disbelief. Lyra stayed beside him, her small hand gripping his as they walked forward. When they reached the dais, the queen stepped down from her throne. Her ceremonial robe was embroidered with threads that shimmered like starlight. In her hands, she carried a silver chain with medallions shaped like the Xylian crest. "Ethan Cole," she said in a voice that carried through the hall. "You came to our space as a stranger. You could have turned away when you found my daughter's pod. Instead, you risked your life to bring her home. When danger followed, you stood beside us and gave us a plan that saved our people." She held up the medallion. "For these acts, the Xylian Empire names you Guardian of the Crown. This honor is rarely given to one beyond our people." The hall was silent as she placed the medallion around his neck. The silver was cool against his skin, the weight light yet meaningful. Lyra grinned proudly and whispered, "Now you are protector forever." A respectful bow came naturally to Ethan, though he wasn't sure it was perfect by Xylian standards. "Thank you, your majesty," he said. "I only did what was right." The queen's gaze softened, but before she could speak again, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed from the far doors. A royal messenger entered, breathing heavily. "Your majesty, a report from the outer patrols. There are signs of another raider force. Smaller, but different." The hall grew tense. "Different how?" the queen asked sharply. The messenger hesitated. "They are not attacking. They are circling just outside our territory, as if they are waiting for something." Advisors began murmuring among themselves. Ethan frowned. Raiders don't usually wait. They strike fast, take what they can, and run. The queen nodded in agreement. "What are they waiting for, then?" The messenger bowed. "We do not yet know, your majesty, but the scouts say the formation is defensive, almost protective." Lyra tilted her head. "Protective?" she asked softly. Ethan's mind began piecing possibilities together. It could mean they have something valuable or someone. The queen turned to her war captain. "Double our patrols and send a scout wing to shadow them from a distance." The ceremony ended sooner than planned, the celebration giving way to quiet caution. As the crowd dispersed, the queen motioned for Ethan to walk with her. They moved through a private garden, the sound of water from crystal fountains filling the air. Lyra skipped ahead, chasing the bright-winged insects that drifted between the flowers. "You have a talent for reading enemies," the queen said without looking at him. "I've had to," Ethan replied. "Space can be dangerous if you don't learn fast. If these raiders are holding something or someone, it may be another trap," she said. "But if it is not, it could be an opportunity." "You're thinking it could be another survivor," Ethan guessed. The queen nodded. "Perhaps another of our people taken before the last battle. Perhaps even someone of importance." He studied her expression. "And you're asking if I go. Look, you move where our ships cannot without drawing attention," she said simply. "A lone freighter piloted by one who has already proven his loyalty could get close." Ethan glanced toward Lyra, who was still playing among the flowers. He knew what the answer would be before he even opened his mouth. "I'll do it." The queen's gaze softened, but her voice remained formal. "Then prepare your ship. You leave at first light." As Ethan returned to his guest quarters, he thought about the medallion resting against his chest. The title of Guardian of the Crown was an honor, but it also came with weight, a responsibility he hadn't expected to carry. That night, Lyra came to see him before he rested. She brought a small pouch of food and a folded cloth with the royal crest. "For you," she said shyly. "For safe travel." He smiled and accepted it. "I'll come back. Promise." Her eyes were bright, but her voice was soft. "You better." As the palace lights dimmed and the city fell into quiet night, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere out there, beyond the safety of the Xylian borders, something waited Whether it was danger, a trap, or another life to save, he would find out soon. And this time he wouldn't just be a wandering pilot. He would be the guardian of the crown, carrying the trust of a queen and the hope of a young princess who believed in him completely. Dawn was pale over the crystal towers when Ethan reached the landing deck. The air was cool, the palace quiet, and the Star Wanderer waited with its ramp down. Like an open hand, he carried only a small pack, a tool roll, and the folded cloth with the royal crest that Lyra had given him. He pinned the cloth above the cockpit display, where it could sway gently with the ship's breath. The calm chimed once. The queen's face appeared steady and calm. "Guardian, go with care," she said. "If you learn nothing, return early. If you learn something, speak to me before action." Ethan nodded. "I will, Your Majesty." Lyra squeezed into view, beside her mother, both hands raised in a wave. "Come back fast," she said. "Promise, promise." Ethan answered, and he meant it. The Star Wanderer lifted into the bright morning, curved through thin cloud, and climbed until the sky turned black and starry. He set a quiet course to the edge of Xyrillian space, threading between patrol routes so he would not draw attention. His plan was simple. Watch, listen, speak softly. At the border, the stars felt colder. His scanner showed wide gaps and faint eddies where ship wakes had disturbed the dust. He waited in the shadow of a small moon and let the ship cool until the heat signature matched the stone below. Then the screen lit with 7 soft blips in a crescent. The unknown group. They were not rushing. They were not charging a line. They were holding. Ethan opened an old trade channel and sent a short message with low power. "Freighter Star Wanderer," he said, "unarmed. I want to talk. I think you are guarding someone." There was no answer for a long minute, only the very quiet hum of his ship. Then a small craft left the crescent and came toward him, slow and straight. The calm hissed. A voice arrived, rough but not hostile. "Freyr, lower your field and show your cabin." Ethan lowered the little shield and turned on the cockpit camera. He lifted both hands so they could be seen. "Name's Ethan," he said. "I am alone." The other ship eased close enough that he could see patches and clean welds on its hull. Whoever flew it took care of their ship. The video link blinked and a face appeared. An older pilot with silver at the temples and calm, watchful eyes. "I am Tala," the pilot said. "Why are you here, Ethan?" The Xyrillian scouts saw your line, Ethan replied. "Raiders usually strike fast. You are not striking. You are waiting. I think you have survivors you want to return, but you fear the Queen's fleet." Tala did not answer right away. Their eyes moved, as if listening to others around them. Then they nodded once. "We took escape. Pods after the attack from a different band," they said. "We hate that band for using children as shields. We do not do that. We kept the pods alive. But if we call the palace, they will come with guns. We are not welcome at their door." "You are right about their fear," Ethan said softly. "They lost ships. Fear shouts loud, but there is a way." "Say it," Taylor said. "A narrow corridor." Ethan answered, "I fly first, broadcasting the Queen's code and my title. You follow at a fixed distance, with hatches sealed and weapons cold. No turns, no surprises. Medical shuttles meet you at a marker. Survivors transfer, then you leave. The fleet stays patient unless someone breaks the rules." Tala studied him. "And if this is a trap, then I am the first caught." Ethan said, "I am putting myself in front. I do not think it is a trap. I think the Queen wants her people home." Tala looked away, listening again. When they looked back, their voice was quieter. "Call your Queen, Guardian. We will wait." Ethan switched to the secure Palace link. The Queen answered at once with the war captain and 2 advisors behind her. He spoke simply, told them what he had learned, and asked for the corridor. The car captain's jaw was tight. The advisors shared worried looks. The queen only listened, then folded her hands. "We will open your corridor," she said at last. "One line, one speed. We hold fire unless they break your rules. If they do, we act. Do you stand by this?" "Yes," Ethan said. "I will keep it clean." The corridor coordinates appeared on his display like a silver thread. He sent them to Tala. The crescent shifted into a small river of ships. Engines dim, lights soft. The Star Wanderer moved to front and lit the Queen's mark and the Guardian code so bright that even a nervous patrol could not miss them. They crossed the border. Syrian cruisers hung far off the corridor, steady and silent, as big and patient as mountains. Nearer to the marker, white medical shuttles waited, like birds on clear water. Ethan kept his hands calm, checked the speed, and called out small updates to Tala. 10 minutes to marker. "We are holding," Tala replied. 5 minutes. Still holding. Closer now. Ethan could see scuffs near. Tala's hatch. He could imagine people behind that door, tired, holding hands. Try not to hope too soon. He felt the medallion against his chest and the small cloth above the console, and told himself to breathe even. They reached the marker. The Queen's approval came like a bell. "Transfer," she said. 2 shuttles left their place and drifted toward Taylor's ship. Their approach was careful and slow. They latched with dull thumps that Ethan could almost feel through the console. The corridor channel filled with soft voices. Medics announcing steps. Pilots confirming link seals. A child asking a quiet question. In Zurillian and being answered with a gentle laugh. First group aboard. A medic reported. Vital stable. Beginning second. Tala's voice returned calm but warm now. "We are also sending a data packet," they said. "Proof of the band that made the first attack. Names, ship marks, routes. We want them stopped." "Received," said the war captain, his tone different. Grateful, not suspicious. "The data matches traces from our outer scouts." Minutes stretched, then softened. The shuttles undocked. A medic spoke again. Joy under steady words. "Transfer complete. 8 Xylian survivors. 2 elders, 2 educators. For workers, minor injuries only." Ethan closed his eyes for a heartbeat. When he opened them, the corridor still held, steady and bright. No alarms, no rush, just a path that worked away a path. Should. The Queen came on to the channel herself. Tala the borderline, she said, "You entered our sky without leave. Today you leave without harm because you returned life. Remember this. Those who prey on the weak will find our doors closed and our hands firm. Those who return what tea is lost will find we can. Listen." Tala bowed their head. "Queen of Crystal Cities," they said, "remember also that a human made this bridge. Call him when you forget how to cross." Their ships turned in a gentle arc and slipped back into the dark. The corridor dimmed and was gone like breath on glass. The palace cleared Ethan to land with the shuttles. The Star Wanderer sank through the bright air to the warm stone of the deck. Below, a quiet crowd waited. There were no cheers, only soft greetings, hands clasped, tears that were not heavy, but light like rain after heat. An elder saw Ethan put a hand over their heart and bowed. He bowed back, clumsy but honest. Inside, the Queen met him in the garden where water sang. Lyra ran to him and hugged him around the middle, her laugh. "Bright, you kept the promise," she said. "You always keep the promise." The Queen's eyes were gentle when she looked at him. "You return more than people," she said. "You return calm to our city and balance to our border. You showed us that patience can be strong." "It was not only me," Ethan said. "It was Tala. It was your fleet that stayed steady. It was your medics who were kind. And it was Lyra who made you listen to a stranger on the first day." The Queen smiled, small but real. She touched the medallion at his chest and placed a small star-shaped device in his hand. "A two-way beacon," she said. "Press it if you need us." "We will press it if we need." A voice that can cross hard spaces. Then we will keep crossing, Ethan said. That evening, the towers turned gold with the setting sun. Lyra walked with Ethan to the ship, swinging his hand the way children do when they feel light and safe. At the ramp, she stopped and pointed at the small cloth above the console. "Keep it there," she said. "So, you do not forget us." "I could not forget if I tried," he said, smiling. The Star Wanderer rose into the calm sky. The medallion warmed with the cabin. Air! The beacon's small light pulsed once, then rested quiet in the tray. The stars ahead did not look empty anymore. Behind him, a queen and her daughter watched it out of the ship fade, and knew that a human would answer when someone was lost. Ahead of him, there would be more borders, more careful paths, more chances to choose care over. Fear. Ethan set a new course and eased the throttle forward. The galaxy opened like a road in morning light, and the Star Wanderer went to meet